Hello all, welcome to study 95 of the Solving Studies to Improve Chess Calculation series. This endgame study comes from Yuri Bazlov and Vladimir Neistadt. They are both Russian chess composers. They have an interesting things in common besides chess composition together. They are also journalists, and as a curiosity, they both published the first study when or first composition when they were around 14 years old. Very interesting. This special endgame study that I bring in this video was sent to the competition of the Azerbaijan Chess Composition Commission competition of the 2025 year, and they won. And I found it so interesting that I decided to include in this series. So if you haven't, I suggest you watch the guide so you are going to the solving with more preparation. And after the countdown, I will come back with the solution as always. And here we are, and as always, let's start with the first right move, which is Queen h4 check. Okay, on the starting position, it's easy to see that we are more or less balanced in material. We need to go to checks directly because on the other side, black is threatening to come also. Trying first, it's threatening our bishop, but also checking. The bishop needs to cover, and if then black reaches this dark square diagonal, we are going to have some problems. So the two options are basically the one that is the main line with queen h4, and the other one is take the other pawn. But taking the other pawn is not enough because the king will be able to escape. Of course, if the king come back, then it's checkmate. So this doesn't work. The king goes to e7. Now we need to keep going with check. So we basically start to have a few options. So we advance the pawn, but black simply takes it. And now, how can we continue? We are not getting enough to play for a win over here. So this is, of course, very very easily discarded. So let's go with the check. Now, of course, black just has one possibility besides the main move, which is to go with king to e5. But of course, then I check it, and when the king comes to the light square, then I have this check attacking the queen and then winning the game easily. So the options are a bit forced on the first moves, and here, of course, black has to play g5. Now things start to be a bit harder. Of course, if we take the pawn, this is a mistake. Well, this is tempting, but because black can take back because it's a discover check. But of course, black has enough to escape, and so even after a while, we are not able to improve much more. As you can see over here, we can't continue with eternal checks without progressing, and after a while it's black to play, threatening checkmate in one. So not easy, and probably this is going to be just a draw, of course. So we can take the pawn, so we now deliver the other check. Queen takes the pawn d4. Now again, as you can see, the pawn is protected by our bishop, so king is restricted. Of course, king is restricted, so the only option is to go to e7. Now we deliver the check with the pawn. Notice that the king can't go back, otherwise we are threatening checkmate. Let's say, for example, if it goes here, now it's checkmate, so this is not an option for black. So the king is forced to come up, and now we again need to continue with our check. So we check with the bishop. The moves are a bit forced, and now we need to think a bit because this is more or less the first critical moment on this line. Of course, we need to keep giving checks, and the only good move is to play with a pawn. Of course, the queen can take it because otherwise we check the king, forcing it to move away, and then we take the queen. So this is not an option. But now the king goes to the g6 square, and now I basically am forced to play with a queen, checking again. Of course, coming back is not an option for black, taking the pawn, because I simply can grab the knight and then grab the pawn, and I have enough material. This pawn will promote soon. I have the queen and the bishop to work against the single queen. There are no perpetual checks because I will be able to get away with the king, and when the dust settles down, this pawn will be easily promoted to another queen, and this is going to be a win for white. So grabbing the pawn is not an option, so the king is forced to come to h6, and now it's white to play. Of course, the king now, as you can see, is cut from all possibilities, and so the correct move is to threat to checkmate the king. But now it's black to play, and black find some last research that I think are very interesting. As you notice, the king is a bit cornered, so black is going to play with that. First delivers a check. Now, of course, the only option is to protect with our bishop, and now sacrificing the queen. Of course, we need to accept, otherwise it would be checkmate. And the follow-up is also very interesting. It brings the knight. Notice that because the king can't move, it's not going to be easy for white to, of course, I can't take the knight. This is a draw. It's a stalemate. The king is not on check, and there is no way to move another piece. All pawns are blocked, so we need to do something. Of course, on here we are already seeing, if you have practiced the studies on this series, of course you are going to consider sacrificing any piece from white to free black from the stalemate situation. Of course we need to be fast because the check is coming, and if I take with the bishop, otherwise it's checkmate, well, it's going to be a draw by stalemate. And one first temptation is to offer the queen over here with the idea, okay, when the black takes, I get out with my king, and then I have enough material to win this one. The extra pawn is enough in this end game. Of course, this knight is not as good as this bishop, and the king is still on stalemate position at the moment. But if the knight takes the pawn, I take with the bishop. If the knight comes, for example, over here, well, I simply can move my king away. I am not forced to take the knight, of course. I don't want to stalemate the position. And after a while, I simply can get away with the pawn and move the bishop to another diagonal. And the position won't be easy, but white will win. So coming back, the problem is when I'm here, it's not enough to sacrifice the queen because black has this one. And whatever the move from white, if white takes with the bishop, then black just takes with the queen, takes our queen. Even if I take the pawn or not, it's the same. We get a stalemate because every option for the black king is unavailable, so it's a draw by stalemate. Same goes if the queen takes the knight, it's the same idea. The king is not in check and no option, so stalemate again. So over here we need to find another way, and the brilliant one is to go with the bishop to g6. Now we are offering the bishop, of course, and if the king takes the bishop, we simply take the knight. There are many moves for black, so here the things are over. But of course, knight can still play, and the idea is to check the king. So now we take the queen back, but of course now we take this pawn, and we have enough material. The pieces are simply well placed for white. It's going to be relatively easy. We can maneuver our king to take the a3 pawn. Otherwise, we are going to try to promote the other one, just bring it back. We have many options over here. We can later come and protect the other pawns. Anyway, this is an easy win for white. Okay, so this was not easy. We needed to find this brilliant idea of avoiding the stalemate from black. I hope you also have enjoyed it. And as always, I see you in future studies. Bye bye.